Supervisor, Julie Donat. Second Assistant Director, William Connor. Script Supervisor, Ava Z. Cabrera. Production Coordinator, Lisa J. Waters. Assistant Production Coordinator, Lila Yakub. Unit Publicist, Andrew Lipschultz. Production Controller, Kathleen McGill. First Assistant Accountant, Catherine Mandala. Paymaster, Mikal Pole. Accounting Assistants, Susan L. Giordano, Rosario Aguirre, Hope Shaw, and Carrie Kravitz. Chief Lighting Technician, Michael Paul Orifice. Assistant Chief Lighting Technician, Stephen M. Chandler. Rigging Gaffer, Mark Susi. Electricians, Anthony Wong, Vincent Contarino, Attilio Orifice, Keith Orifice, and Ben O. Graham. Universal ACLT, Oshana Walker. Key Grip, Ron Cardarelli. Best Boy, Sid Lucero. Dolly Grip, Dave Wachtman. Rigging Grips, Randy Troyanek and Gary A. Brostrom. Grips, Marty Dubkowski, Ron Peebles, Michael D. Hightower. Supervising Sound Effects Editor, Stephen Hunter Flick. Supervising Dialogue Editor, Anthony Chick Ciccolini III. Dialogue Editors, Lou Cerberino, Thomas A. Gulino, MPSE, Video Sullivan Smith, and Dan Sable. Supervisor ADR Editor, Lisa J. Levine. ADR Editors, Stuart Stanley and Harry Peck Bowles. Sound Effects Editors, Donald Stewart Flick, Richard L. Anderson, MPSE, Dean Bevel, Warren Hamilton Jr., MPSE, Eric Lindemann, Elliot Koretz, MPSE, and Patricio Liebenson. Supervising Foley Editor, Judy Flick, MPSE. Foley Editors, Matthew Bevel, Frank Smathers. Assistant Dialogue Editors, Yvette Nabel and Lynn Sable. Assistant ADR Editors, Shari L. Schwartz and Linda Sundlin. Apprentice Dialogue Editor, Daniel Pagan. Sound Assistants, Linda Yaney and Dana Gustafson. Special Sound Effects, John Pospisil, Donald Stewart Flick, and Steve Lee. Sound Effects Recordists, Ezra Dweck and Adam Jenkins. Foley Walkers, Ellen Hewer and Chris Moriana. Supervising Music Editor, Jim Henriksen. Music Editor, Thomas Drescher. Assistant Music Editor, Kristen Johnson. Orchestrations by Steve Bramson and James Horner. Music Contractor, Sandy DeCrescent. Re-recording mixers, Rick Dior, Steve Peterson, Scott Millen, Ezra Dweck, and Bob Sheffilis. Sound Recordist, Bob Olari. ADR Mixer, L.A., Dean Draben. ADR Recordist, L.A., Ann Hadsel. ADR Mixer, New York, Paul Zidell. ADR Recordist, New York, Doug Murray. Foley Mixer, David Job. Foley Recordist, Don Givens. Music Scoring Mixer, Sean Murphy. Music score recorded at Todd A.O. Studios. Post-production facilities, Todd A.O. Studios East. Todd A.O. Supervisor, Steve Castellano. Voice casting, Lynn Redding and Loop du Jour. Set designers, Joseph A. Hodges and Lori Robotham. Storyboard artist, Eric Ramsey and Richard F. Delgado. Art Department Coordinator, Angela O'Neill. Art Department Assistant, Joshua Adrian Sipe. Key Set Dresser, Lisa K. Sessions. Lead Man, Wayne Shepard. Set dressers, Larry A. Cornick, Richard Morgan Jones, Scott G. Jones, John Maskovich, John H. Maxwell, Edward McCarthy, Chris Parker, Chris Pascuzzo, and Greg Wilkinson. Property Master, Stephen M. Levine. Assistant Property Master, James W. Robinson II. Second Assistant Props, Terry Ann Kopp. Construction Coordinator, Dave Cannon. Construction Foreman, David Weinman. Paint Foreman, Mitch Simmons. Prop Maker Foreman, Matt Martin and Jim Ricker. Labor Foreman, Alejandro Poli, Michael Corral, Philip Ruvalcaba. Welder Foreman, Steve Ewing. Construction Accountant, Stacy Kramer. Greens Coordinator, Lee Runnels. Foreman, John McCarthy. Greensmen, David O'Brien, Jason Vanover, William Matzner, and Anthony Vitagliano. Key Makeup Artist, Daniel Strapecki. Makeup Artists, Hallie Demore, Larry Abbott, and Michael Lorenz. Key Hairstylist, Catherine L. Blondell. Hairstylists, Joy Zapata, Audrey Anzures, Hazel Catmull, and Carolyn Elias. Special Effects Coordinator, Matt Sweeney. Set Foreman, Bob Stoker Jr. Electronics Foreman, Arnold E. Peterson. Effects Assistants, Jan Aris, R. Michael Bassetti, Tony Santones, William Santones, Richard Cordobis, Kent DeHewitt, M. Stuart Epstein, Larry Fuentes, James Hart, Don Kraus, Bruce Kuriyama, Steve Laporte, Jeffrey Makitt, Paul Sabarin, Hal Selig Esquire, Rocky Severy, Neil Smith, Lucinda Strubb, Fred Tesaro, Michael Wilmot, and Gary Zink. Effects Craft Service, Frank Davis. Computer Display Supervisor, John Mansour. Computer Research Programming, Marty Garner. Network Technician Programming, Robert Bobbio. Video Operator, Paul J. Rawson. Computer Technicians, James Mansour and Martin Coleza. Costume Supervisor, Dan Bronson. Assistant Costume Designer, Marjorie McCown. Set costumers Robert Moore and Mary Elizabeth Still. Costumers Elena Del Rio, Leslie Weir, Joe McCloskey, and Dana Edwards. Assistant to Rita Ryak, Maggie Morgan. Seamstress Carmen Mazzaro. Location manager Ned R. Shapiro. Assistant location manager Andrew Ullman. Location assistants Matthew Pook and Tony Sens. Casting associate Susanna Griffith. Extras casting Central Casting A.J. Das. Set production assistants Jonathan McGarry, Matt Rebenkoff, Stephanie Axe, Eddie Kolos, Colin Hanks, Dylan Masson, and Laurel Robinson. Office production assistants Robert J. Mustachi, Christopher G. Cowan, Richard E. Chapela Jr., Dean Zanuck, and Peter Karras. Intern extraordinaire Ed Yoon. Assistant to Brian Grazer, Maureen Cowan. Assistant to the executives, Sarah Bowen. Assistants to Tom Hanks, Terry Odom and Eric Bork. Assistant to Kevin Bacon, Susan Miras. Catering for stars. Craft service, Beverly A. Burton and James Keitel. Studio teacher, Elise Gantz. Set medic, David Krupnick. Physical trainers, Dan Isaacson and Dr. Paul McGauley. Massage therapist, Diane Hubner. Transportation coordinator, Joel Morrow. Transportation captain, Randy Cantor. Transportation office coordinator, Tammy Batts High. Drivers, Johnny Bartlett, Rodney Bennett, Dan Brizendine, Paulie DeCoco, Billy Esparza, Gavin Grazer, Dan Howell, Harold Bud Lacey, Vic Martinez, Joseph Sullivan, and Jim Vargas. Second unit, Director Todd Hallowell, Director of Photography Ray Stella, First Assistant Director Bruce G. Moriarty, Second Assistant Director Susan Pickett, Script Supervisor Jana Stern, Video Bill Hargrave, Sound Mixers Jeff Patterson and John Soul Sutton, Boom Operators Craig Woods and Bill DeDonough, Chief Lighting Technician Joe Orifice, Assistant Chief Lighting Technicians Keith Roverwood and Jim Fine, Key Grip Steve L.C. Cardarelli, Best Boy John A. O'Grady, Property Assistants Charles Faithorn and Doug DeRose, Transportation Captain Dan Howell, Caterer Bruce's Catering, Craft Service Rico Lozier, Production Assistant Jeffrey Eagle, Helicopter Pilots Robert M. Bobby Z. Zajonk, Alan D. Perwin, and Michael Tamburo. Special visual effects by Digital Domain, Venice, California. Digital Domain Visual Effects Supervisor Robert Legato. Visual Effects Producer Jenny Full. Visual Effects Line Producer Carrie Thomas. Visual Effects Director of Photography Eric Nash. Visual Effects Assistant Craig Caton Largent. Model Supervisor Patrick McClung. Digital Compositing Supervisors Michael Canfer and Price Pethel. Digital Effects Supervisors Karen E. Gulikas, Mark A. Lassoff, and John McLaughlin. Digital Effects Art Director Kevin Mack. Night Compositing Supervisor Gray Marshall. Digital Effects Producers Amy Jupiter and Mark Loff. Visual Effects Supervising Editor Alan Capusili. Mechanical Engineer Scott Salsa. Additional Photography Robert Legato. Assistant Camera Michael Bergstrom. MC Camera Operator Michael Karp SOC. Gaffer Tony Anderson. Best Boy Electrician Rick Petretti. Best Boy Grip Brian Marinchik. Pyrotechnic Supervisor Joe Viscasil. Pyrotechnician Robert Hutchins. Animation Rephotography Chris Dawson SOC. Production Coordinator Kelly Lestrange. Model Crew Chief Leslie Ecker. Model Makers Greg Bryant, John Ferrari, Gordon Forkert, Gerald McClung, Felix Ojeda III, Bradford Plows, Michael Possert, Sabina Meyer-Zu-Ressendorf, Brian Ripley, Eugene P. Rizzardi, and George Stevens. Lead digital compositors Mark O. Forker, Stephen J. Scott, Adam Stark, and Gary L. Walker II. Digital compositors Feliciano DeGiorgio, Jamie Friday, Brian Grill, Jerry Hall, Pablo Hellman, Ethan Ormsby, Lori Resnick, and Martine Tomsic. Supervising digital artists Dennis M. Blakey, Judith Crow, Robert Small, and Neville Spiteri. Digital artists John Agazian, Peter Baustetter, Floyd Casey, Renee Chamblin, Candice Chin, Sean C. Cunningham, Laura de Blasio, Craig Halperin, Caleb J. Howard, David Isyoman, Gary Jackamuck, Christine Lowe, Simon O'Connor, Aaron Fow, Kelly Port, Randall J. Rosa, and Alfred Urrutia. Digital mat artist Martha Snow Mack. Scanning and recording supervisor Jeffrey Kalmus. Scanning and recording manager Joseph Goldstone. Visual effects editor Deborah Wolf. Visual effects assistant editors Josh Margolis and Tommy Dorset. Technical assistants Jeffrey Edward Baksinski, Harrison Zanuck, and Rocco Passianino. Image data coordinator Matthew Butler. CG coordinators Lisa Harriman Anderson and Franco Pietrantonio. Software developers Hank Driscoll, Jake Kauth, Jay Sloat, and Bill Spitzak. Senior Systems Administrator Shoshana Abras. Systems Administrator Matt Kuhil. Machinist John Lissman. KC-135 Weightless Unit. Production Coordinators Virginia Diaz and Brooke R. McDonald. First Assistant Director Bruce G. Moriarty. Second Assistant Director Susan Pickell. Director of Photography David Knoll. Camera Operator Josh Bleibtrue. First Assistant Camera Scott Smith, Scott Fuller, and Chris Duskin. Key Grip Jeff Howery. Grips Steve Graves, Brian Ashford, Troy Webb. Chief Lighting Technician Andy Ryan. Best Boy Electric Glenn Moran. Caterers Joan Meyer, Janet Carter, and Kathy Kraft. Craft Service Patrick Werner. Production Assistants Michael Barson, Alfred Cervantes, Dennis Clay, Chris Clifton, Misty Kahn, Kirk Douglas, Jim Flowers, Susan Jameson, David Kelsey, Jimmy Lindsay, Michael McDevitt, Lars Sloan, Marshall Smith, and Paul Swen. Cape Canaveral Unit, Production Coordinator Wendy Haas-Hammond, Assistant Cameraman David Campbell, Additional First Assistant Camera Steve Latham, Additional Second Assistant Camera Chip Bird, Loader John Hines, Grips Gene Sigmund, Jimmy Giacona, and Luke Halpin, Electricians Gary Ware, Dennis Huss, and Peter Eisner, Assistant Prop Master Bobby Amore, Westcam Operator David Norris, Westcam Technician Scott Johnson, Catering Craft Service, Two Chefs Catering Chris Halsey. Westcam provided by CRM Group Incorporated. Negative Cutter Gary Burrett. Color Timer Bill Pine. Titles and Opticals Pacific Title. Songs Waiting, written by Carlos Santana, David Brown, Greg Rowley, Mike Shreve, Jose Arias, and Mike Carabello. Performed by Santana, courtesy of Columbia Records, by arrangement with Sony Music Licensing. Night Train, written by Jimmy Forrest, Louis C. Simpkins, and Oscar Washington. Performed by James Brown, courtesy of Polydor Records, by arrangement with Polygram Special Markets. Beyond the Sea, written by Charles Trenet and Jack Lawrence, performed by Bobby Darin, courtesy of Atco Records, by arrangement with Warner Special Products. Groovin', written by Felix Cavalieri and Eddie Brigatti, performed by the Rascals, courtesy of Atlantic Recording Corporation, by arrangement with Warner Special Products. Somebody to Love, written by Darby Slick, performed by Jefferson Airplane, courtesy of the RCA Records label of BMG Music. I Can See for Miles, written by Peter Townsend, performed by The Who, courtesy of MCA Records. Magic Carpet Ride, written by John Kay and Rushton Morive, performed by Steppenwolf, courtesy of MCA Records. Purple Haze, written by Jimi Hendrix, performed by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, courtesy of Are You Experienced Limited. Spirit in the Sky, written and performed by Norman Greenbaum, courtesy of Transtone Productions. Lemon Tree, written by Will Holt, performed by Trini Lopez, courtesy of Reprise Records, by arrangement with Warner Special Products. Honky Tonkin', written and performed by Hank Williams, courtesy of Mercury Nashville, by arrangement with Polygram Special Markets. Blue Moon, written by Richard Rogers and Lorenz Hart, performed by the Mavericks, courtesy of MCA Records Incorporated. Soundtrack album on MCA CDs and cassettes. Command and Lunar Module interiors and Apollo 13 spacesuits replicated by Kansas Cosmosphere and Space Center. The Dick Cavett Show footage courtesy of Daphne Productions. Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie footage courtesy of Columbia Pictures Television. Laugh-In footage courtesy of Schlatter Friendly Romart. Photography of Dr. Robert H. Goddard, courtesy of the Clark University Archives Goddard Collection. United Press International name and logo authorized by Worldwide News Incorporated. Fiber optic lighting hosemaster by Aaron Jones. Video displays by Video Image. Rear screen projection by Norm Levin NL and Company. Remote camera systems by Netman Matthews. Music recorded using 20-bit technology courtesy of Sonic Solutions. Special thanks to Walter Cronkite, Mr. Philip M. Strubb, Department of Defense Liaison, Commander Gary E. Schrout, USN Project Officer, USS New Orleans, LPH-11, Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 85, Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 11, Naval Air Station, North Island, California, Naval Station, San Diego, California, Vandenberg Air Force Base, California, California National Guard, Los Alamitos Armed Forces Reserve Center, California, Navy Office of Information West, Los Angeles, California, Lieutenant L. Robert Garcia, USN, Army Public Affairs Office, Los Angeles Branch, NASA Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center, Caroline Huntoon, George Abbey, Brian Welch, Billy Deason, Elena Salsitz, Gail Ferrer, Don Picard, Mike Gentry, Debbie Dodd, and Becky Friday. NASA Reduced Gravity Office, David Liestma. Test Supervisors, Robert K. Williams and Linda W. Billica. Pilots, Robert J. Naughton, David L. Mumm, Arthur C. Ace Beal, Stephen J. Feaster, Stephanie A. Wells, Frank J. Marlowe, Albert H. Cruz, Jr., and Arda J. Roy, Jr. Flight Engineers, Bill R. Robertson, William R. Mines, John C. Lamb, and Henry L. Marshall. Photographers, Pete Stanley and Robert Markowitz. Medical Support, Charles K. LaPinta, M.D., and Smith L. Johnston III, M.D. Technical Assistant Lawrence R. New. Ground Crew Sandy Sawyer, Kevin Flynn, Bill Condon, Jimmy Harvard, Louis Val, Harley Fexer, Jack McGee, Luther Levan, Roy Winery, B.J. Jones, and Walter Townley. Space Center Houston, Gwen Griffin. NASA John F. Kennedy Space Center, Bob Crippen, Hugh Harris, Ed Harrison, Bill Johnson, Tina Peschen, and Manny Verratti, Jr. NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, Rodney Grubbs and Sandra Turner. U.S. Space Camp, Marianne Higgins. Northrop Grumman Corporation. The Kansas Cosmosphere and Space Center, Hutchinson, Kansas. Max L. Arey, Norma Housewright, Susan Johnson, and Jan Arey. KSCS Spaceworks, Ronald Barr, Kay Blackburn, Greg Buckingham, Doug Callentine, J. Michael Conkling, Dana Durr, Rick Donovan, Steve Duarte, Daniel Garcia, Paul Hawley, James Hayes, John Hurst, Lonnie Johnson, Donald Keller, Bill Kelly, Steve Long, Brian McCullough, Robert Martin, Donald Miller, Gene Ramsey, Gary Salmons, Jim Shaw, Tim Stoughton, Gary Willems, and Dennis Williams. WonderWorks, Brick Price, John Palmer, Troy Hughes Palmer, Clark Acton, Wes Hansen, Laura Price, Sherry Snowden Acton, Robert Bonchoon, Matt Boyko, Patrick Brady, Michael Bullpitt, Robert Clark, Ken Cornett, Elizabeth Eckert, Alan Fukuyama, Brenda Gilpin, Guadalupe Guevara, William Iverson, Jane Kilkenny, John LaValle, Steve Miller, Bill Murphy, Michael Rowe, Matt Traverson, Eric Van Kirk, and John Wolfe. Margaret Ross, Marilyn Shanzer, Ed Gibson, NBC News Archives, CBS News, ABC News, UPI Worldwide News, Washington Post, Omega Watch Corporation. Filmed with Panavision cameras and lenses. Color by Deluxe. Eastman Color Film. DTS Stereo in selected theaters. Digital DTS Sound in selected theaters. Number 33862, Motion Picture Association of America. This picture made under the jurisdiction of IATSE, affiliated with AFL-CIO. Copyright 1995. Universal City Studios, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Country of first publication, United States of America. Universal City Studios, Incorporated is the author of this motion picture for purposes of the Berne Convention and all national laws giving effect thereto. Although this film was based upon a true story, certain characters and events have been fictionalized for dramatic purposes. This motion picture is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or exhibition may result in civil liability and criminal prosecution. An Imagine Entertainment presentation.